Thank you for tuning in to Hacks and Hobbies with your host, Junaid. In Season 2 of Hacks and Hobbies, we're visited by our amazing guests coming from all walks of life who want to learn their story, their struggles, and their journey on how they got to where they are today. So stick around. In this episode, we get to speak with Mark Metry, host of Humans 2.0 podcast. He's been featured on the podcast had been featured on Forbes, HuffPost, Inc., and listed in the top 21 growing podcasts for 2019 on the NASDAQ. And I've had the privilege of connecting with him back in 2018, September, and have been following his journey and engaging with him on LinkedIn and Facebook. And this dude is the genuine deal, man. He's got it down. I love it. And I'm so happy and excited to bring him onto the podcast. So, Mark, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the podcast.
Dude, thanks for inviting me. Glad we can make it happen.
You're welcome, dude. So, Humans 2.0 is an amazing idea, a concept, and it's one of the top 100 podcasts. And I absolutely love that we as humans have tendencies to, first of all, stick in the past, but then with usage of technology and the different advancements, we have the capacity to expand our mind and evolve in ways that only are captured in dreams and movies. And there's a ton of people. I mean, you've interviewed a ton of amazing folks on your podcast that have made that change into becoming Humans 2.0, using their mind to the max and bringing so much quality to their life as well as the life of people who follow them. Where did all of this inspiration come from?
Well, I'll tell you what comes to mind first.
Yeah.
And so before we started recording, you were telling me to talk about maybe things that I haven't really talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
And, a really sort of like new concept that I'm beginning to think about is like, we have this concept of Humans 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
It means, the next level of a human being, whatever it is for them. And, everyone's different. When I look back at it, when I was like maybe younger, there were definitely some Human 2.0 moments where, it might have been like, a peak experience for you, or you could see a glimpse of something that was awesome that you did. Mm-hmm. And like, the more you think about it, it's just like, you even probably had like, thoughts in your mind that were laying out other decisions when you were faced with decisions to make.
Yeah.
There's always that path that's available to you. And it's just got me thinking, like, the way that I'm living my life now in like this quote unquote Humans 2.0 way. And like, for anyone that, doesn't know, I just fundamentally think that, I'm just a different version of the person that I used to be, probably starting from like maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. I had never heard of the words mindset or success or, understanding what real freedom, and I was a young person. And so, I was somebody that was over 200 pounds, was very, very socially anxious, didn't really have much friends, didn't really honestly felt like I didn't really do much with my life. I had the luxury of experiencing as a kid, like I was always launching different, ventures and like businesses online, like all the time, probably more than I've just completely lost count. And so, one of those ventures ended up getting really lucky when I was about like 14, 15 years old. And I, went from a kid whose, parents immigrated here from Egypt here to America with, $200 in their pocket, didn't know the language, grew up on government housing and food stamps and people donating food to us. to then sort of like just sort of stumble into this thing out of fun that was not sort of intentional. And I began experience that when I was 15. Didn't really know what I was doing. Didn't really hit me until later on. And that began sort of like a cognitive dissonance in my head, because like at that time I had achieved society's definition of success, like what I thought, what I was trying to hit in life when I was very young, when I was 15. But yet, I still thought of myself as a loser. I I wasn't happy. I had a very low self-esteem despite achieving, society's success. People call it the American dream. Immigrants definitely know this, where, you eventually, you grow up, you go to school here, you get a degree, you end up getting a job, you end up working your way. And then like one day you have like a 6-figure salary, and you live in a house with like a family, and you've got a dog. And, it's just like, that's really what I began to see. It's like, you can have all of those things, but still be very, very unhappy on the inside. And that's exactly what I was. And so, from like basically starting from the age of 15 all the way to 18, basically 18, 19, I sort of like began, shifting my thoughts, because I was, caught up in this event that completely changed the course of my life. And then eventually that led to me, sort of getting caught up in this depressed spiral. And it's like the person who I was mentally and physically, that was a human 1.0. I'm unconscious. I'm in the default setting. Things in life are happening to me. You're always on the defensive mode. And so through like my own little version of like me hitting rock bottom that I faced when I was like 18, and I was like over 200 pounds, eventually I ended up transitioning out of that. And like the first door for me, so to speak, like the gateway for like the whole Humans 2.0 thing that started out with me, that was like a path that I could take. And the one path that I actually did take, and it made a change, and it pivoted me more towards sort of like living this lifestyle. And the first thing, it was food, it was nutrition. When I began to change what I ate, because at first I didn't understand that there was an internal problem. I just looked at the mirror and I saw that I was overweight, and I was like, okay, you gotta fix this weight. I didn't even understand at that point that there was even a whole mindset, mental part that I even had to be aware of. I thought it was all physical. And so that's how I tried to solve my issue. Like that's how it happened. And as I began to understand what to eat and, what not to eat, I began to sleep better. I began to gain more energy. I just began to see, I think something that I've heard is like, when you gain more energy, that enables you to experience life on many different other dimensions that then enable your mind to give you the possibility that there was something more for you. Absolutely. And it's just like, after all that happened, like that's really how I began to get down this route and really change. But yeah, I mean, Humans 2.0, that's really how it happened. And the podcast was just like a tool. And I was just like, all right, I was turning 20 when I had just started the podcast, summer 2017. And I was just like, I need to start this so I can talk to smart people and make it in a mutually beneficial way so that I can build up an audience so people would actually talk to me. Because it's very unlikely that you would try to talk to somebody like a Shark Tank guy or Seth Godin and be like, yo, can I have an hour of your time? Like there's a very... if you just email them that, like, can I pick your brain? Like, they're probably not going to say yes.
Like,
so that was just like a tool that I used as like the podcast. And it's just like, I've been doing it for mostly every day. And it's just like, you show up eventually day after day and, it happens.
Yep.
There's a lot of work. There's a lot of shifts, maybe things that I can talk about that I haven't talked about before or haven't really articulated. I mean, I don't know. It's up to you. What do you think?
That sounds great, because one of the statistics that I was looking at the other day, and I'm sure a lot of people saw that, is how, first of all, Spotify picked up Anchor. there was 200,000 new podcasts introduced back in 2018, whereas there's a total of 650,000 total podcasts in the world. I mean, just those numbers, right? And when I saw the blog post, I think Pat Flynn mentioned it, and he was super excited to bring this blog post or this blog by Seth Godin and how podcasting is a new blogging. And being a guest on the podcast is like guest blogging. And I remember back in the days a little bit about, I mean, I did my share of blogging and I still do when I can, but I never had the opportunity or never connected on the level of what Seth Godin is mentioning with guest blogging, where you have enough clout that you can go and write a blog post for other blogs. And being a guest on somebody's podcast is similar to that. And so it all comes down to content creations. So I would definitely love to hear those things because you've gone through the process a little longer than I have, and being consistent, having to connect, scheduling, automation, and getting into the podcast nitty gritty, right? Because you're also editing the podcast. Once you've recorded it, once the interview is done, now you've got to go do the work of getting it ready for production. So yeah, we would love to hear about those.
So what I had to do to answer your question is I had to go back to the beginning. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is when I was first getting started on my whole interpersonal journey, one of the things that got me started, one of the tools that I began to take in my everyday life in every single moment was like this 3-step formula. And listen, I'm not one for formulas. I think that there's a lot of complexity in life, but I think that there are some things that maybe we should look at. And so the formula that I ran into was the number one thing you have to do is take responsibility. The second thing you have to do is take action. Number 3 is just find a way. That's it. And it's like, that might seem like overly simple to somebody, but that's all you need. And it's like, what does that actually mean? So it's like, number 1, take responsibility. You got to apply that everywhere in your life. And it comes, when it's also for marketing and like podcasting, it's the same exact thing.
Yeah.
You could say to yourself, oh, wow, the Facebook or the LinkedIn algorithm is down or something, and there's no way that I could succeed. So I'm just not even going to try as hard subconsciously because I have that belief.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you apply that, it happens every single day with all of our decisions. But if you have that framework, number 1, take responsibility. You got to ask yourself, why is this working? And the matter of the fact is, what's not working is you. And you've got to find a way to make it better, right? Because it's like, okay, how do I know? How do I find out this problem? What do you do? Number 2, you take action. That's how you get data. That's how you understand things in the world. You just take action, even when you don't know what to do. And then it's like, after that, it's just find a way.
Yeah.
You just find a way. That's really it. And it's like, you take that and you apply that into every single thing in your life.
Yeah.
It will completely change your behavior. And so for me, I remember this very distinct moment where it was on New Year's. I think it was like January, I think it was the last day of the year of 2017 going into 2018. And that's where I began to take the podcast seriously, because I just had this moment with myself where I was, honestly, a little bit sad because I knew I was holding back. And I was just taking a look at everything that I did. And I just realized that I just need to take the podcast to a completely different level. And it's like from that day, January 1st, 2018, that's where I began to apply that same formula that I was applying in every other area of my life to the podcast after have been launching it for a few months.
Yeah.
And so after that, man, it was just like a train. And it's just like one thing after the other. I put in different processes. You hire different people, you do whatever it takes. You take action, you just find a way.
Yeah.
And, it's always going to be your responsibility. It might not be your fault, but it's always going to be your responsibility.
Exactly. Good friend of mine, Errol Erdeman, said, be intentional responsibility or something like that. It's like take explicit responsibility. For example, if you got in an accident, it's still your responsibility, even if it's not your fault. If you had left 5 minutes earlier, wouldn't be in that accident, right? And take action is a really powerful one, because that's something Tony Robbins says all the time. Take massive action, change your state. Like if you're sitting down, stand up when you're doing something, change your state, and then your mind will automatically make that a habit. So all you got to do is change your state, and you're immediately in that new state of mind that you want to be in to move forward. And
during this podcast interview, I've probably done about like 25 push-ups.
That's awesome. That's
I'm somebody that listen, man, that's like for me, man, like I have a very active mind.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to harness that in how I can use my time the most efficiently. Like on my podcast,
yeah,
that's the first question that I ask my guests. That's what I'm obsessed with that. And so I'm like, before, I could spend my time right here on this call.
Yeah.
And I could be doing other work.
Yeah.
Right. I could be like, I could have my computer open. Like I could be doing other stuff.
Exactly.
And I have done that in the past.
Yeah.
But, I think that the focus, my attention,
goes away.
It'll make for a much better podcast interview if I just focus with you and I don't work. Yeah. But it's like, how can I work the other parts? How can I use my time more efficiently? And it's like, hey, you just said it, Tony Robbins, change your state. And it's not necessarily I'm not necessarily doing it to change my state.
Yeah.
But I'm just doing it just because I know it's a good behavior. It's a good habit to have. And it's just like, I was somebody that I never thought I'd do push-ups, but I just, if you've ever read that book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, I had the chance of interviewing him.
Nice.
And he talks about habit pairing or habit batching.
Yes.
And it's like combining habits, right? So what I did was I told myself whenever I would go to the bathroom during the day, I would just get down. And at first, at the very beginning, it was like, just do one push-up. Yeah. And eventually it was 2, then it was 3, then it was 4. Then you just work your way up. Yeah. And then like you just end up creating this habit that you don't even necessarily consciously do anymore. And it's like,
exactly.
We all have good and bad habits. But most of the time we've done the bad habits or the habits that no longer serve us so many times that, they're just stored in. And it's like, you want to create unconscious good habits. You want to make conscious of the unconscious bad habits.
Absolutely.
And it's like, that's how you make the most efficient use of your time here on planet Earth. Just if you want to get that answer or that question answered.
That's super.
But there are no answers. Questions are the answer.
Exactly. No, that's super powerful, because I think it was the book One Thing, and it mentions the same thing. You got to batch the habits. You got to attach a habit, for example, flossing, attach that to brushing your teeth. You're going to brush your teeth anyways. Just add one more thing to it, or put a book next to your nightstand. So read for 10 minutes or 5 minutes before you go to sleep. Instead of looking at your phone before you go to sleep, you just add those cool little habits. And then once you've done it enough times, I think 66 is the ideal number, then it's automatic. Then your mind is like, all right, where's that book? Where'd I put my book? So that's amazing that you're able to do 25 push-ups just between this call. I'm just
25
floored.
push-ups, man. And I'm also right now I'm stretching.
Nice.
Because I'm very sore, and so I'm just stretching all the time now because I've got to let my muscles grow because I'm lifting and getting stronger. So
yeah. If
I don't, a lot of stress on the physical side builds up, and that ends up translating to my mental. So I mean,
absolutely.
You've got to You got to be able to proactively do it. Even it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you view it as important enough and you prioritize it, you've got to
Absolutely.
just find a way to do it.
Yeah, these are absolute amazing body hacks, right? Mind hacks that you can integrate into your life. And being a podcast on hacks and hobbies, that's one hack we can put it down in the books. Be active and um, add some kind of physical movement, even if you're standing, even if you're sitting and you're looking at your phone, just stretch your legs or stretch your arms. And yeah, man, that's super, super awesome. All right, next step. All right, so we heard about how you got into the mindset and what you saw that was not working for you, and you took action, you took responsibility, you took action, and you found a way to make it happen. And what's really awesome about what you mentioned about that is, I had a similar kind of revelation. 2018 came around, and I had been talking to my buddies, and I was like, all right, I need to start a podcast. I need to do something. Because in 2018, I turned 42, and 42 is the ultimate answer, right? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I was like, I'm 42. I've got to make it happen. Nobody else is going to do this for me. And so I took action. I started podcasting. I started, I documenting my process and journey. And I'm all better for it, right? It's something that I can point to. I'm like, hey, I did this, and continue on moving forward, because now I'm on that train of creating content, not just for anybody else, but this is just for me. I'm doing this so I can get better at what I'm doing, at how I'm growing as a human being. Because I remember 20 years ago, I was an absolute introvert. I wouldn't talk to anybody. The only people I talked to were my family, my cousins, and I didn't have a lot of friends. The only people I knew is probably at school, and even then, I had very limited number of people. But then, as I grew and as I realized
How
what's
old are you
really
now?
happening, I'm going to be 43 this year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's been a crazy journey, and and I've learned so much, and I've seen people like Frank Kern and um damn, these internet marketers from back in the 90s and back in the 2000s. And I'm like, holy smokes, how are they able to do this, right? They found, like, they built their businesses on internet marketing, and I was like, I could totally do it. Why am I not doing it? So I studied and I looked at those things, but then it all came back to, okay, I don't know how to start it. So I've just always defaulted back to doing what I was good at, or doing what I knew, which was working for somebody else, right? And so last year I took upon myself to look and find a way, right? I took action, I took responsibility, I took action, and I found a way to uh, learn everything that I can and apply it. And then the book, Crushing It and Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk, talks about building your personal brand. And I'm like, I've been building my personal brand for the past 15 years because I'm Super Junaid on every site that you can look up. And I've been doing that for the past, 10, 15 years. You just look up Super Junaid and you'll find me. And I was like, that's my personal brand. I just got to grow it. So I've been, signing up on classes and learning from like people like Pat Flynn and people like Vanessa Lau on Instagram. She's got a Bossgram thing, and then ton of stuff happening on LinkedIn, which is totally blowing my mind. There's, Lila Smith's got something going on, Katie, and they've got their Sustainable League podcast and their Unlearn. So I've connected with so many people. I mean, I'm just looking at between you and I, we have 419 mutual connections, right? So jiving with those same people that are applying their mind and applying what's possible into the real world. So that's been super helpful and super amazing.
Nice, dude. I love it.
So Gary Vaynerchuk, and then so last year in August,
Awesome.
Gary Vaynerchuk and Tony Robbins, they came to Fairfax and they spoke at the stadium, and it was just mind blowing. Like just experiencing Tony Robbins speak up on stage for 4 hours was just, I was like, I do not want to get out of this high. And at that point, I was like, this is it. I am going to push myself to another level and make something of my podcast. Right. And from then on, I was like, I'm going to do daily podcast episodes. I would record in the morning, post in the afternoon, and then record in the morning, post in the afternoon. And it's been pretty exciting. And then I also learned about the different processes, like you mentioned, right? You like once you start moving, now you've got to have, because it gets quite repetitive, right? What was the first thing that you said in June of 2018 or January of 2018? Like, how would you put more effort into this? You might be going all over the place, but I think you've got some kind of flow of knowledge going on.
Oh, sorry. I had my microphone muted, but
Okay.
what I was telling you is, dude, it's the formula that I told you.
Yes.
So on the January 2018, I got that formula down. Responsibility, action, just find a way.
Yeah.
And so once I did that, my one of my friends, he's a world Olympian athlete, and he has this great quote, Donald Suja, and it's mental toughness is waking up every single day and doing the same thing.
Oh man.
And it's like, you know, there's definitely a point where that can be a bad thing for sure, of course.
Yeah.
But what he's really saying in there is that, you know, like there's no such thing as like getting bored or too repetitive of, you know, like sleeping.
Yeah.
Like you have to sleep, right? Like you don't really have a choice, right?
Exactly.
We have other activities that we do that may not be as, you know, as important, or, you know, whatever that measure is for, you know, each person and the things that they care about. But it's just like, you know, like in my eyes, like, you know, waking up and, you know, going to the gym or spending time with people I love or eating healthy, all these things are just non-negotiables. Like they're just like the layers of life. Exactly. And dude, those are the things that you have, because I don't know about you, but like, here's the thing. For the most part, like I have my own issues, but I always do the right habits that I know I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah. Like that's not a question for me. Like, because I know the alternative. Like I've lived 18 years of my life knowing that other side. And it's just like, if you understand that, like, it doesn't matter, you know, in my opinion, the way that I live my life is like, it doesn't matter, you know, whose birthday party it is for you to be doing something that is not in the actual accordance in your beliefs. If you have the certain right morals and values that you've laid out in your life, because that's really going to be your compass. You know, a lot of people, man, they're just swimming all over the place. You know, I used to be a sort of aimless fish, and you're cast in the open ocean where you're getting hit by the currents and there's other fish blowing you left and right. Yeah. But the matter of the fact is, like, the moment you realize that's actually an illusion and you actually have a lot more control of where it really counts. Another person who I've interviewed on the podcast, Dave Asprey, founder of Bulletproof, he says that I asked my audience a question, and he said, what areas of your life do you think you're not in control of? Because I can tell you whatever the answer that you're thinking is, it's a lie.
Yeah.
And it's just like you begin to think about that. And for me, man, like I'm like this really interesting part of my life where I'm experiencing so many new things, so many like layers and people that I have access to
Yeah.
because of this platform. And I'm not trying to say it about myself, but it's just like, I mean, dude, it's insane when you begin to know like what is out there, like who's doing what. And it's
Absolutely.
just like it's a crazy time to be alive. And it's just like, listen, like, you know, Naveen Jain, a person who's become a friend of mine, he's like
Hmm.
this philanthropist billionaire, has a space company, a healthcare company.
Yeah.
He has, he was telling me when he was starting his company, he said that you can either be a part of history or you can just sit on the sidelines and just watch.
Yeah.
And it's just like, those are the two options. Like, our world right now is going through an insane amount of amazing change that is just
Absolutely.
going to fundamentally reposition the very essence and the very way that we exist as
Yeah.
humans on planet Earth.
Absolutely.
And I want to be a part of that. I don't know about you, but
Oh,
I'm not.
absolutely.
I'm like, in my opinion, man, I'm not like, knowing what I know now,
Hmm.
like knowing all these people and everything. Like, dude, there's no way that I can sit on the couch
Oh
and
no.
just watch Netflix
No
and like
way.
eat popcorn. Like, there's just no way. Like, that's just not for me. And it's just like, but I was there, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that this is the ultimate goal or anything. Like, I think
Yeah.
people should do whatever they want, and
Absolutely.
ultimately, you got to exercise and you got to take the actions that you yourself that you decide in your own life and take accountability. And it's just like, for me, like the thought of me doing that just makes like the blood in my body feel radioactive, like
Yeah.
poison. And I know like that's just, I'm that kind of person. And so,
Hmm.
you talked about Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
And dude, when I saw him for the first time when I was like 18,
Hmm.
dude, that just like completely reshifted my brain and
Oh
my
yeah.
worldview.
Yeah.
Because like whatever cloth that Gary is cut from,
Yeah.
whether it's the immigrants or this,
Yeah.
I know I have some of that part of me. I don't 100,000% necessarily believe in Gary. I mean, no, not
Hmm.
in Gary. I love Gary in like every single one of his worldviews.
Yeah.
But it's just like, if you see a person that is doing and is expressing his life the way that he wants to, in a way that you also feel that,
Yeah.
and like that can just totally reshift your brain. So it's like, when I saw Gary, man, like that was a big shift for me, because I began to realize like an authority figure, like somebody that's pretty big,
Hmm.
is actually doing this stuff. So
Exactly.
that was definitely just like a massive shift for me.
Absolutely. I mean, he touches on so many of the points, and it's just mind blowing because he is not only talking about it, he's doing it, right? And that's what's amazing. And people ask him, what about the next thing? The next best thing. He's like, don't worry about the next best thing, because if you're not taking advantage of the thing that is here right now, you've already lost the next best thing, because this is it. This is the time. So yeah, absolutely, man. I love that.
The present
Man,
moment is everything
yeah, dude.
for the most
Absolutely.
part.
Absolutely. So we've had some really awesome topics. We talked about how you realized what you were missing and how you took action and you made it happen for yourself, because you realize that this life is a one-time deal. You don't get,
Mm,
well, you know what people say, YOLO? Well, obviously
right.
you live once, but that doesn't mean that you act stupid. Because if you're acting stupid, well, guess what? It might be fun for the moment, but it's you, if you're wasting time and wasting resources and energy, then you probably haven't thought this through of what life is about. And how, like, the one thing that reminds us of how precious life is when you see and hear about people passing away or people dying. And that's one of the things that I keep an eye out, like, oh wow, this person was 16 years old, and they're no longer here. This person was 19 years old. They did something, and
dude, here's another thing.
Yeah.
You know what I think about? I think about how right now, dude, as you and I are speaking,
Yeah.
there is some like Mexican family right now that is trying to cross the border because they're trying to give their kids a better opportunity right now, dude.
Absolutely.
As we are talking,
as we speak, yeah.
And it's just like, dude, you start to like drop in these little reminders every day. You know, you start to write this down. Like not necessarily about what I just said about like the immigrant, but it's just like you just start to write down things about like yourself and the way that you want to view yourself.
Yeah.
And you drop in like these little reminders, man. Like that's what it's all about. Like, you know, this is kind of going on the lines of habit pairing, but it's like something that I've learned to do, man, that's really changed the course of my life.
Yeah.
That I ended up learning from Brendan Bouchard. And he has this concept of a gateway trigger, a doorway trigger. And it's basically like this. Whenever he walks into a doorway, whenever he sees that, that is a reminder to him to make sure that like he himself is good and he's all set and he's entering that door with an opportunistic and open-minded and, you know, positivity and showing up the way that he wants to show up.
Yeah.
And not in just the way that time ends up throughout the day. And it's just like, that's something that's like really, really awesome because it's like, as you start to do these things, man, like, you know, there's only a certain level of, I don't want to say comfort, but there's a deeper level of meaning and fulfillment that, you know, ends up coming from these sorts of things. And it's just like easy thing today. You know, the hard thing is going to suck a lot in like 5 years. But if you do the hard thing today, tomorrow it's going to be much more manageable and much more, like I said, meaningful and fulfilling for you in the long run. And so it's just like, that is the filter. That is like the fixed variable of mind to like the whole mind that I'm just really interested in talking about, you know?
Yeah. That is a really awesome point. And so as a beekeeper, I see that happening on a daily basis, right? I see the bees in my beehive, I see them coming back with pollen, and they're constantly doing this day in, day out. Why? Because they want to make sure that they survive the winter. I mean, the reason they store honey is so they can survive the winter because they can't go out. Like as soon as the temperature drops below 50 degrees, they cannot fly. Their flight muscles, because they're not warm-blooded, they cannot fly. So they're constantly working. So they have a future. So the new babies that are coming, they have a future. They have something to feed on. And like just looking at that insect working day and night to ensure the survival of the colony, and we look at what we're doing on a daily basis, it just eclipses on the level of commitment that we need to put into our lives.
Here's the other thing, man.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have a choice.
No, they don't.
Right? Like, it doesn't really have a choice. Like, I mean, I guess it could resist, but it's like, that's just the life that it was born into.
Oh, yeah.
But then you just begin to think about human beings, and we have way more opportunity and potential. Like, it's insane. Like, you could literally do a gazillion different things, right? And like, just the fact that, like, I think sometimes that opportunity can make us anxious, right? Like, if you don't totally realize it, you have too many choices.
Yes.
You don't really know what path you're going to go on.
That's
but if
true.
you know, were born 200, 300, 500 years ago, you know, you would probably be, you know, we obviously have struggles today, different kinds of struggles. But I mean, like, if you were faced with very immediate struggles like people were in the past, you wouldn't be thinking like, oh, what am I going to do with my life? Right? Like you were just trying to be survive like into the next day, right? Or like you were just focused on doing whatever you had to do, like whatever task that you were born into.
Yeah.
But it's just like today we have, you know, the gift of knowledge, of, you know, technology, of basically infinite opportunity.
Absolutely.
And I think that like, you know, what you were saying, YOLO and or like FOMO and all these different things, it's like, I think it comes out of a, you know, certain level of existential, you know, paranoia, of anxiety.
Yeah.
due to things that aren't conscious of, that are not aware of, that are not under control.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that falls into line is, I think it was some video that I watched, and somebody was mentioning how there's thousands of people in the world wearing somebody else's last name on their t-shirt.
Oh my God, admire that.
Right? And whose life are they living? Right? Are they living their own life, or are they living somebody else, promoting somebody else? And it's just mind-boggling. It's like, yes, that's great. Right? That's really good that you're supporting a team, but where do you fall into the spectrum? Mark, this has been a really great conversation. I love it, and I wish we can go for a longer time and probably bring you on again and talk about some other awesome things that you've learned over the years. But I've got some questions for all the guests that come on, answer these questions, and that makes some little fun. So, what is one hobby that you wish you got into?
Skiing.
Nice. Awesome. Skiing's fun.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. What is your favorite movie or TV show?
Black Mirror.
Black Mirror. All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite superhero?
Iron Man.
Oh, man. I love that guy. Okay. Last question.
Fair resemblance.
Yes. If you were a board game, what would it be?
Connect 4.
Nice. Now, is that a board game, or is it just a game?
I think it's like I don't know. I mean, you put it on a table.
Yeah, I guess you could put it on a table. All right, cool. All right, so we know that we can find Mark Metry on markmetry.com, as well as the Humans 2.0 podcast on Apple iTunes. I'll be sure to leave those links on the show notes. Mark, thank you so much for your time. I had a lot of fun talking with you, and hopefully we keep in touch and do some more collaborations.
Totally, man. 100%.
All right,
hey, man, I gotta run. I got somebody waiting for me on the other side. No worries. This was fantastic, man. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right, you too. Bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode on Hacks and Hobbies. We absolutely appreciate your contribution. You can find additional notes on hacksandhobbies.com. Please share the podcast with your friends and tell them what you learned about our guest today.